Hello, my lovely friends, and welcome to the Curious Handmade Podcast. I'm Helen. I'm a knitter, a knitting pattern designer, and crafter of all sorts. It's a lovely sunny day here on the Sunshine Coast in Australia, and I'd love for you to join me for some knitting and a bit of a chat today. How are you feeling? It feels like an understatement to say that there's been a lot going on, not just recently, but for the last few years. And that's without even the personal ups and downs that life brings along the way. It really wasn't quite sure how to restart this dormant podcast that's been quiet for so long. And I've decided to just pretend that it hasn't been such a long gap and to come and pick up my knitting and come and chat with you today. January is nearly over, and here in Australia, the school year starts at the end of January. And so we've just had a flurry of back to school activity. And yeah, it just feels like such a long time already since December when we were in the UK, in London, visiting friends. I went over for a holiday and spent most of the month in London, including Christmas, and also went to Paris for a few days, which was just so wonderful. We were very lucky. We had fairly mild weather and we were just getting really cold before we left to come home. And it was such a restorative trip because it was so nice to have a change of scenery, and it was really nice to be really cold, which probably sounds a bit strange, but here it's so warm and sunny and we don't really get seasons. So just having that change climate and the clothes people were wearing was really inspirational. As a knitwear designer, it was really inspiring to see so much knitwear both on the streets and in shops. Just to see the different colors and styles. In Paris, especially, the people watching was really fantastic. Both men and women really dress up, really very stylish, just really interesting outfits and different shapes of coats and knitwear, and it's just wonderful. We stayed close to where we used to live in southeast London in our old neighbourhood, and so it was so nice to just soak up the atmosphere, the familiar sights and the lights. It's so beautifully lit in London over the festive period. It's really nice. And then to go inside to fireplaces and be all cozy and warm and just hang out with friends and watching holiday movies and things like that. It was just really wonderful. As usual, I packed way too much yarn to take with me. I probably had about half a suitcase of yarn to take over. Some of it was for gifts, but most of it was for potential design projects. And I have to say, this trip, some trips I don't really knit all that much, but this trip I really was very inspired. I finished the last clue of the mystery knit along pattern that I was designing and also settled on the name, the Hedgerow Shawl Mystery Knit Along. And I've been working with Lisa from NNK Yarns to come up with some gorgeous colours for the shawl. It's a 3-colour shawl. So most of the design work had been done already before I left, but I couldn't quite finish it before I left for the trip, and was able to finish it quite quickly once I got over there. And the first clue comes out on the 12th of February, so not very long away at all. So very excited about that. And then once I finished that, I was inspired to start designing a collection for the Shawl Society for this year. So I was able to sketch out and design most of the collection while I was in London and knit a couple of the samples as well. So yeah, it was a very inspiring trip and very productive on the design front. And it didn't even really feel like work because I was just sitting watching holiday movies and just chatting with friends. And yeah, so it was all lovely and cozy and quite relaxed. Unlike sometimes when I feel a bit pressured with a deadline, but it was really nice. to just have that time where I didn't really have to worry about too much else, day-to-day life, day-to-day boring admin and things like that. So it was really nice. I was able to catch up with lots of friends and spend some time just really properly catching up in person in a way that you can't do over the phone or a Zoom call or just chatting online. After the fairly hectic go travel schedule and maybe a little bit of doom scrolling since coming back, I've really been drawn to knitting projects that are pure comfort knitting and just really soothing, really very easy projects and no pressure. It might be the influence of my psychology studies, but I've been thinking a lot about ways to regulate my nervous system and emotional regulation. And for me, there's things like walking and physical activity, but of course also knitting really help. So the project that I have picked up again is my anthology throw that I'm knitting on here, and the yarn is by Wool and Vine. It's the Lost Reindeer collection. How stunning is that? It's a set I bought, I think it was like a surprise subscription. I don't remember what year it was. It was quite some time ago when I was still living in London, so that's at least 6 years ago. And I think I had it for some time before that as well. And I decided to use it for an anthology throw. More than 3 years ago, I cast this on. And yeah, so it's just been a very patient project that has been waiting for me whenever I need it. Yeah, I just love this yarn so much. It's so beautiful, and it's very I want to say mindful, because I am just constantly looking at all the speckles, and like, I don't know, like if I can show you, but there's this like hot pink in this section, for example, and I just love it when that hot pink pops up. And I think for the last few years, Kristen has released this collection again. She's brought it back, and yeah, so I think a couple of people have seen my anthology and maybe using their Lost Reindeer collection to knit it. I don't know that I can say like that I have a particular way that I've used the colors. I could probably work it out, but yeah, basically just doing fairly regular sized sections and just changing colors whenever I feel like it, basically. Just sort of picking up what I think is going to look good next. I'm onto the second band of some of the colorways. I did end up using some of the yarn for some designs. I think for the Scrappy Knit Van collection, I used some of the yarn at one point. So I think there was 7 skeins. So there's more than enough to knit an anthology, plus there's probably more than enough to knit 2 anthology throws, because the anthology takes a set of 24 20-gram minis, and so that's like 2.5 skeins, is it? My maths isn't so good. 2.5 100-gram skeins. So yeah, so this is more than enough to knit a couple of anthologies. I'm not sure if I might make this one slightly bigger, just because I don't want it to end. Anyway, it's been very comforting. I can just knit rounds. It's a pie shawl, and so the rounds are 576 stitches is what they are at this point, which is already, you can see it's a lot of stitches. And then, but before the shawl ends, it doubles. So it goes up to 1,152 stitches for the last 20 or so rounds. So there's some really long rounds at the end. But I don't mind that, because it means I can just, it's really mindless, relaxing knitting that I can just watch knitting podcasts or watch some TV and just relax, but have something happening with my hands. Another really relaxing project that I've been working on is making mini balls for another Advent set from my stash. I think this is the 4th set of sets I've made. So basically I find 24 skeins of yarn in my stash that I think look nice together, and then make 20-gram mini sets. And so each set of 24 skeins makes 5 sets of minis, basically an advent set or a holiday countdown set. So the first time I did that was for the anthology throw, and it feels like really naughty to be using yarn in that way, in a weird kind of way. It feels like it's not allowed. But what I found was that this way I can use my beautiful yarn that I've lovingly collected, but I can just use 20 grams of a skein. And then the other sets can be gifted or sold, and other people can also enjoy the yarn, because I have so much that I just won't get to it otherwise. So this way, at least I can knit a project. I can knit an anthology shawl, or maybe something like a habitation or one of my other advent patterns, and use my lovely yarn. Once I knit the anthology and was able to use those quite precious skeins. Some of them were from Deep Stash. A lot of them have been gifted to me, and sometimes when skeins are a bit older, it means it's a bit harder to use as a designer, because often I try to use like a yarn that's available currently when I put out a new design, just so that often people really like to use the same yarn as the sample. I've taken to doing that a bit less. Like, I've taken to being okay with designing with yarn that's not available anymore, but mostly I do prefer to knit with yarn that's currently available. So that means that a lot of the yarn in my stash is not suitable for that purpose anymore, which is the joy of using indie dyed yarn, because it's so small batch and unique. But it does present challenges as a designer. So it's really helped my feeling of being overwhelmed by my stash, because having said that I've started making a 4th set of these minis means that I've used nearly 100 skeins from my stash. I'm laughing because I still have an overwhelming amount of yarn, but it's just slightly less overwhelming now. And I mean, obviously first world problems to have too much yarn. I'm trying to get to a feeling of having enoughness in my life, like just enough things. And so yeah, it feels good to be using the my stash in this way. And it's just really nice. I have a station up on the kitchen bench where I have my Nosta pinner that I use to wind the yarn, as well as some scales and some balls of yarn that I'm working on. And so when I'm boiling the kettle or brewing some coffee, I'll just wind a mini, and yeah, it's just very meditative and relaxing. It's very enjoyable. I will probably continue making these sets and kind of a bit sacrilegious use of yarn, but anyway. So I'm sure I'm not alone in using my craft and creative activities and knitting for comfort at the moment. I would love to hear in the comments what you're working on, and if you're finding any solace in creative pursuits at the moment. I always find knitting and other crafts very comforting, and also help me process some of my feelings. And I'm saying this from a place of huge privilege, and I've also been thinking a lot about other actions that I can use to channel my emotions at the moment, my anger and frustration and sadness. And yeah, just doing small things like donating to mutual aid, and to think about what other concrete actions I can be taking. And yeah, I just hope that you're taking care of yourself, and if you're able to, taking care of your neighbors or friends, or the wider community as well. It really does make a difference. So thank you for spending this time with me while I knit a few stitches and have a chat with you, and allowing me to return to this space and connect with you again. Thanks for spending this time with me. Happy knitting, and I'll talk to you again soon.